okay, holy shit, it's happening. Sometimes you're ready for it, sometimes you're not. But it's unreasonable that you won't find success in something if you're doing it consistently, especially for a good amount of time. And a lot of people haven't really sat down and written out their story. They don't necessarily have a clear idea who they are. What are you aiming towards? And what's making you aim towards that thing? What's some of the context? Give me a little bit of the backstory of why that means something for you. And now I want to know what you're doing to get there. And the only way you really change your identity is just create enough evidence to support the person you want to become.
Today's episode is with Bryan Hynes. Bryan's known for his powerful ability to tell creative visual stories, and a lot of his work's aimed at helping creatives learn how to film themselves and communicate their ideas through storytelling. In this conversation, we break down some of the techniques he uses when approaching a story, how he thinks about filming himself and documenting his work, and also some of the lessons he's learned throughout his own journey as a creative. There's so much great value in this one, so let's get straight into it, and I hope you enjoy the episode.
It's going to be a good conversation, I can tell.
Oh, dude, I've done a lot of prep.
Okay, cool.
I feel like because I get to learn more like selfishly. I learn heaps. Every time a guest comes on, I don't want to take any shortcuts. And I feel like the more I go into their work, the more I can learn and like just take things that I can put into my own work.
Yeah, I mean, the person who learns the most in any classroom is a teacher.
Yeah, totally. Or
maybe
right?
in this case, the podcaster.
The podcast host. And for you, a lot of it's been storytelling. What made you passionate about storytelling?
I mean, from a foundational level, like you can go back as far in time as you want, but stories have been a way to connect with people, but also deepen our understanding of how we see the world. Yeah. They can allow others to see the world through our eyes or through the stories that can shape ideas. It can bring people together, it can tear them apart. Stories are powerful because it's innate in our psychology to respond to a story. People just want to find out what happens next, or they want to follow some sort of journey or transformation. The big thing with storytelling is it makes us feel something.
Yes.
You ask people, how was that movie? And they're like, I felt like so sad that this happened to this character, or like it's bringing out some sort of emotion. Yep. And I was teaching a class yesterday, and I was showing them some examples of powerful storytelling in like a minute and a half, and it was actually a brand video. So like it was used in marketing, and one of the most powerful things you can do as a brand is associate yourself with an emotion, and the way to do that is through storytelling, right? Very good. And so if you tell a story that makes people move, or feel moved, or it makes them feel something, and you associate a brand with that, or you associate a product with that, then you're basically trying to own or stand alongside that emotion. So maybe it's kindness, maybe it's power, it could be confidence. Yeah. And so the power of storytelling is sure, it can work in sales, but really it allows people to see the world through a different perspective or deepen their understanding. It can inspire, it can teach them things. Foundationally, I think it is one of the most powerful tools you can use, and you can always rely back onto it, either around the campfire with your family or friends, or if you do want to create something online and scale it out to a lot of people, that might align with that message in the story. So yeah, I agree.
So true. I've also learned that when it comes to emotion, the higher the emotion, the more chance we have of remembering something. And the example that was taught to me was, you think back to your days in high school, where we had thousands of days in high school. Every one of them was the same. Like, how many of those days do you remember? And the days you usually remember are the ones that are tied to high emotion. Yeah. The very funny thing that happened, or the fight that you have, or the day you got in trouble, or you won an award. Like, all those are tied to really high emotion, and they're the only moments you remember. And I guess when we're flooded with a feed that gives us an endless amount of content, the ones that'll stick are the ones that drive the highest emotion.
Yeah, I mean, that's memory, right? So, almost anything in life is tied to a feeling. And the stronger the feeling, or the stronger the kind of emotion that's associated with that, it's going to like imprint on memory. And that is usually associated with like, what's your favorite movie? And people don't necessarily remember every single detail of the movie, but they remember how it made them feel. Yep. It's the same with high school.
Part.
Maybe they were like super embarrassed, maybe they were doing some public speaking and they felt like super scared, and that has stuck with them throughout their life. Yeah. And that can either become a limiting belief and a story that they keep telling themselves is like, I'm so scared of public speaking. Or it could be, an empowering moment where they, did really well maybe in a sport, and it gave them that little boost of confidence of like, you know what, maybe I can do this. And then that is stuck with them throughout life. And that is a story they tell themselves of like, yeah, maybe I can do that difficult thing because that emotion is so strong from an early age. So it can either empower us or it can actually limit us. But either way, it's memorable because of the power of that emotion that came out.
Yes. I do that with videos that I make, like videos for clients. Like I'll look at it and I'm like, is this the emotion that I want to get out of someone? And like there's so many ways you could do that. But if it's not drawing the emotion, like if it's the wrong emotion, you want to kind of change it.
And you know, that happens by mistake. You know,
yeah.
There was a really cool poem written by a lady called Victoria Hutchins, and there was, you know, that poem was written and there was some really nice, you know, soundtrack by Arcade Fire, and combine those. And I wanted to use that in a video to kind of undertone some of the visual sequences that I had created. And so I kind of like meshed, you know, Victoria's beautiful poem and this soundtrack and these visuals. And I thought, oh, this is going to be a really kind of inspiring, you know, piece. It's going to be more about like, where can you see yourself in 10 years, you know? And it kind of started at the year, I think it was like the year 2035, and it kind of like, you know, brought itself, you know, back to the current year. And, you know, I made that thinking people are going to be like, you know what, that's so cool. I've never thought about that far ahead. But it actually turned out to be a really powerful anti-suicide ad.
Oh, wow.
So
unintentionally.
Unintentionally. Yeah. My intention was not to kind of get people thinking about, you've made it through this year and let's look ahead to the possibility of the years that follow.
Yep.
And so my intention was to bring out an inspiring or maybe empowering emotion. But what I did, without meaning to, is I brought in this deeper kind of emotion of taking a moment to reflect on how far you've come. And for some people it was sadness. Some people it was excitement. For some people it was retrospective, you know, existential moments of like, oh, I've made it this far and I'm so glad I did because I came close to not doing that.
Yeah.
And so when it comes to, I want to, you know, you're telling a story and you think you're going to creating, maybe it's funny or it's humorous. Sometimes you don't know how it's going to be interpreted.
Yes.
But I guess the point for kind of explaining that story was that either way, it was a very strong emotion that came out. And that video ended up being shared like millions of times because it just resonated on a message that either people felt empowering or they felt like it helped them from a place of difficulty to be able to see a place of possibility.
Yeah, that's amazing. Powerful stuff without even meaning to do it.
I mean, and that's not just the visuals, that's the power of words as well. So a poem can tell a story and that can connect with people. And it goes to that, you know, that first kind of point we're making about, do we think storytelling is a foundational skill? And it's like, yeah, because you are making people connect in a way that sometimes is intentional, sometimes it's not, but that will spread because it's memorable and it actually connects with what is human.
When you look at a story, read a story, when you see a story, what makes you think it's a good one?
It probably goes back to like if it made you feel something, like
if
you
make
laughed
me feel
or
something?
like, or if something changed. You know, the biggest thing I think.
Did an act change? Did it make me?
Or like did just something happen and change? Whether that's a transformation of someone, whether maybe they've had like an idea and then now they've actioned it and their perspective has changed. Did it help me understand the world a little bit differently? Could I find some relatability in that? So I guess those kind of points of like, did I feel something? Was there some sort of change?
Yep.
If either of those things have happened, I consider that a good story. And it doesn't have to be this Hollywood type, story. It could be someone just talking to camera and maybe they're recounting a bad date they went on, but it's funny. You're learning something about the person. You know, you feel something and maybe you learn, you know what, maybe, I might change my dates. Maybe I won't go into a 3-hour sit down date and maybe I'll go for that 15-minute coffee. Otherwise I'll be stuck in a chair for 3 hours with someone who's driving me nuts and eating all the oysters. So, I mean, so I think, foundational, you want to feel something.
Very good. And we'll use video as this like example, but what's one storytelling technique that could instantly elevate your story when you're making a video? Like what's the one thing? Because there's obviously so many ways you could do it.
Yeah.
What do you think is the one thing that gives the most impact?
It's interesting because I teach a couple of a couple of principles, and I break them down to like 3 or 4 steps. And I think the one that I think a lot of people will resonate with is this one comes from South Park.
Okay.
And, you know, the co-creators of South Park, you got Trey Parker, I forgot the other guy's name just off the top of my head. I'm sorry. Those guys were giving a lecture about the power of cause and effect. And so there's a storytelling principle called connect with therefore. And so the idea here is that one thing happens and that leads to the next thing happening. And so the word therefore is used that, let's say, you know, you've got a coffee from the cafe, you've got your laptop, and therefore you're walking along, you tripped, you spilt your coffee over the laptop, and you lost all the memory on your laptop. Therefore, now you're in a panic because, you know, you can't recover all the files. And so you start using the word therefore. It's like one thing happened, therefore the next thing happened, therefore the next thing happened.
And it dictates the next thing.
You've got cause and effect.
Yep.
The trap that people sometimes get into with storytelling is that they use the words and then. And so the words and then are random. So, you know, I've got the coffee and the laptop, and then I'm trying to recover all the files on my computer. And then I'm doing this next thing. And so what tends to happen when people use and then is that it can appear really random. We don't see how the events are connected to each other. And this happens in videos all the time. You might watch something and you're like, I'm watching someone at home, and the next minute they're out getting dinner, and the next minute they're out, you know, doing this other thing, and you don't see how the events are connected. Whereas if you just use the words connect with therefore, like I'm out doing this thing, therefore this thing now needs to happen, therefore I'm now doing this activity, that allows things to follow a linear pattern.
Yeah,
and so if you think of stories, you want them to have some sort of cause and effect. And so when the cause and effect is evident, people can follow along.
Yeah.
They follow along the journey. It doesn't seem random.
Yep.
That one principle alone will allow people to follow your message or follow whatever journey or transformation you're trying to share, whether that be a character, whether that be a personal journey. And if you avoid using the words and then, it just won't appear random.
Wow, very good.
So that principle alone, I think, will help hopefully a lot of people.
That really would. And I feel like if you were to plan that out, you'd also just shoot with purpose.
Yeah.
Like I've been caught out so many times. I'm out, I'm just shooting everything because I just don't want to miss anything.
Yeah.
But by using that principle, you just have way more intention with what you're shooting.
Well, you think of like making a recipe.
Yeah.
You're prepping the ingredients, therefore you can use them in a particular order. Therefore you can start adding them in and building the flavor combinations and the dish. Therefore it all comes together. Therefore you can plate it. Therefore you can eat it.
Yeah.
It's not random.
Yep.
And so if you think of it as like you're building something that is going to come to a result at the end, that's the whole idea with storytelling, is that you're starting in one place. Maybe you've got all the raw ingredients for something great or something cool to happen. And then throughout some sort of process of change, it starts to connect. You can join the dots. You can see how it all comes together. And in the end, hopefully there's something delicious for people to kind of walk away with.
That's fantastic. It's almost like, would you, I've made this up. Would it almost be like you can reverse engineer it and be because of, like this happened because of this happening?
Sure. I mean, you could use that term as well. I mean, there's a lot of ways you can kind of frame it. And I guess this is...
But it's like asking the why question, like why am I shooting this?
Yeah.
And it's because of whatever happened previously.
Great mindset, because what you're trying to do is you're trying to see how two things connect.
Yeah.
And that's really what therefore means. It's like therefore is cause and effect. And just think of cause and effect.
Yep.
Just make sure they're related to each other.
That's fantastic.
I mean, there's a bunch of other principles that we could use, but that's one of them.
That's really good. I had recently, it was about a month ago, I had this little Italian guy named Roberto Ricotta.
Roberto.
He's exactly like that. He's exactly what you're imagining. Very Italian, great guy, known for his storytelling.
Cool.
Loves his storytelling. And one of the biggest concepts that he told me about was the concept of contrast. And he's like, when you're telling a story, it like obviously the character goes from point A to point B, but he was like, how far apart can you make the audience perceive that point A is to point B? And I thought he was so powerful because he said that he was making videos about like the staff at Messina, because that's his client, and he'd talk to the CEO. So by asking him the right questions, he found out that he worked at McDonald's. He's now started the story at, I worked at McDonald's.
Right.
And he's like, the contrast now is so big and it makes the story so much more powerful. And I'd never seen it that way, but it really like opened my eyes to like trying to be able to tell better stories. How do you think this is just a technique, or how important do you think contrast is to a story?
It's interesting because I was talking about this exact same concept the other day, but I was talking about it in terms of life and feeling stuck. And contrast is one of the ways that you can see gaps and you can feel grateful, and it allows you to see a different perspective and gives you different ideas and experiences. It can actually break you out of a creative block if you're feeling it. It's like traveling. It gives you solid contrast. So maybe you're living a particular life where everything is totally easily accessed and it's not really challenging. And you go somewhere where maybe those things don't exist to the level that you're used to. It creates contrast.
Yeah.
I know in my personal journey, when I share my story, I tend to kind of start from where I wasn't doing video at all. I hadn't touched the camera. And I think when you do when you tell people contrast, or you say this is where I started, like the McDonald's story, and to being a CEO, people go, wow, what a journey. I want to know more, because how could you possibly go from this, this person working here to such a, a high profile role over here? And so I think actually contrast is, it's a really effective way for people to go, I want to see how those dots join together. And you can't have contrast without going on a journey as well. And I think, a lot of people want to be mentors, they want to coach people, provide value, and I think that's fantastic. But sometimes you do need to have the journey part. You need to go through the hardship to have the journey of contrast. You have to be able to start in one place and go, you know what, I went through all the kind of hardships along the way to get to where I am, and this is why you become more valuable in sharing your story, is because people can relate to maybe where they are and where you are and where they want to be.
Exactly.
And so, my story starts, I left school. I went into being a chef.
You're a chef, yes.
I was a chef for a number of years, and a small country town. Grew up there, wanted to be an actor. That was kind of seen as being egotistical.
You're a drummer boy.
Yeah. So all my well played. All my like the cousins in my family were all drummers. My uncle was a drummer. I was like, I'm going to play drums. And so being in front of the camera wasn't kind of an option, because it was seen as you just fool yourself. Everyone's like, why do you want to do that, mate? You just want all the attention. Classic country. And so you got ridiculed. And so I was like, all right, screw you guys. Maybe I'll be a drummer. And so I started learning drums, and that kind of gave me that little bit of performative,
that's cool.
Nature. Learned music, went through that, played in a lot of bands. I still play drums now. I've got them set up at home.
That's cool.
But I left school, be a chef, did that for a number of years, and I'm like, I need to crave the outdoors. And so then I started to learn how to kayak and rock climb and hike and navigate and keep groups safe. And so I started doing that in Australia, and then one thing led to the next thing, and I was like, could I do this overseas? And before long, I started taking these groups of, teenagers and high school students on these 2 to 4 week long expeditions around the world. I'd take a school team into India, and we'd trek, in India for like a week and a half, and then we'd go into like a village and work with the community on a project. And, I'd do that in like Peru and in the Himalayas and Nepal. You'd camp through jungles of Borneo and sleep in hammocks for a week and shoo away the monkeys as they come and steal everything from you. And, horse trekking in Mongolia. So I did all this travel and all these incredible experiences with young people.
Wow.
And I was just taking I think I had a little phone at the time. And it was taking hardly no photos. Wow. And it was just a backpack, and I was just a guide, and I was just kind of living in the, the kind of moment. I didn't even realize you could film these kind of things until I started, went through a whole ikigai of could I tell stories and still provide, meaningful experiences to young people, but then find a way to encourage more people to experience the outdoors through storytelling.
Was Instagram relevant at this time? Were you online?
Oh, I mean, you might put a photo or a selfie of yourself in front of a Taj Mahal, or seeing Machu Picchu behind you.
It sounds like so many experiences. That sounds epic.
Incredible experiences, but really I had no high quality photos, or it's just a little I'll just take it because I kind of feel awkward taking it anyway, but here I am.
Wow.
And so I was like, all right, let's get a camera and start. And then I started, capturing some of those experiences or stories with students, and then we were could we create something that goes back to the school, and they show that
helps the school out.
And even the parents, of these young people going into the outdoors, they could be like, oh, that's what's happening.
Yeah.
That's where we're popping the bubble, and their world is expanding just through the sense of experience.
Yes.
And expedition companies were like, this guy's a leader and a guide who's trained up. give him a camera, and now he can take a team, be with them safely, keep them safe, but he can capture the stories and experiences on the ground.
Wow.
You know, so that kind of started fueling that. And at the same time, I was lecturing and teaching, you know, the next wave of guides coming into the industry.
Damn.
So I was starting to kind of nurse that teaching.
So you're really involved in this world. Like, you sound very cemented in this space.
It became an identity. It became like, I'm someone who is like taking groups and, you know, on incredible experiences. And then it was like kind of shifting a little bit from like, I'm the guy who can do that at a really good level, but I'm also going to use a camera now. And then that fueled the kind of motivation to go, could I do this for brands? You know, could I get work in TV? Could I, you know, create my own kind of stuff along the way? So I started kind of building these skills from lots of different areas. And then, you know, through the process of consistency over the years and just trying different things, mimicking different techniques and putting it in your own work, then, you know, that kind of leads to now where I'm like, I'm teaching people how to tell stories, how to film themselves, how to create and work with brands. A lot of kind of a lot of contrast. A lot of contrast. Like
when you're in that position and like you realize that like you're good at multiple different things, and especially in the creative space, there's an unlimited amount of opportunities, and I'm sure a lot of them would excite you. How do you pick what to do? Like, does leaving guiding behind make you feel a certain way? Like, did you feel you have to choose? Did a moment come where you're like, I've got to give some things up to focus on?
Yeah, I think for anything you want to decide to do, you've got to choose your sacrifice.
Yeah.
Rather than choosing maybe, you know, what's the best thing, it's just choose what you're willing to sacrifice.
Yes.
And for moving from a space of like guiding and teaching, because that was very much an identity. When I tell people that, I was excited because I'm like, I'm the adventure guy.
Yeah, man.
You know, I was like, I'm chasing life.
That's a hard identity to let go of.
Yeah, because you want to keep a part of that. You want to keep like, you know, I'm someone who, you know, follows through with new ideas. But curiosity was the thing that leads to trying different things. If you're curious about something, try it, find out, work out whether it's your thing, and then you can go to the next thing. And through that process, you acquire skills that you might not realize at the time, but you probably may utilize them later down the future. And for me, that was group facilitation. It was teaching. It was knowing how to work with people. So all those skills I was developing in my early 20s, I'm now using now.
You took away with you. Yeah,
absolutely.
That's amazing.
And so, you know, the curiosity, I once wanted to be a barista. You're making coffees, but I was also a kayak guide, right? So I wanted this idea of like, I wanted to have this like little van with like paddle boards and kayaks. Wanted to rent them out. I had the chef skills. I was like, maybe I'll make some like nice treats or something.
Wow.
And I'll make coffees because I'm like, that seems like a bit of a vibe. I'll follow the summers. I'll cruise around the coast.
That sounds sick.
I was like, you know, it's probably a pretty good income. I heard like, you know, you could make some good money doing that.
Yep.
Rent it out. I'm a bit of a guide. I can give a briefing. Stay safe, guys. Out you go. By the way, here's a latte. And so I was like, okay, where do I start? I'm curious.
Talk about multitasking.
And so I was like, you know what? I'll go do my barista course. And so I went and learnt how to make coffee. And, you know, we're free pouring, we're using all the different milks. And we're smelling beans and we're kind of getting the grinds right. And then I had a moment in that class. I was like, you know what? Turns out I just really like drinking coffee. I don't want to make coffee. And so, you know, I loved it making my own coffee, but I didn't want to make it for other people. But I would never have got that skill or that kind of aha moment or that knowledge if I hadn't gone and chased that curiosity or just at least found out so I knew.
Yes.
And so that's where the whole, you know, jack of all trades comes from. But the rest of that quote is like, you know, jack of all trades, master of none is oftentimes better than a master of one. And so people forget that end part of the quote is that all the curiosity streams that you go out and find out what resonates with you, if you go and do that, you'll accumulate all these skills that you're going to use later down the track rather than just going, oh, I'm just going to stick with this safe path, do this thing for the rest of my life, and I'm going to get really good at it.
Yep.
If you're not someone who is like really enjoying it, you'll often resent the fact that you just never followed through what you were curious on. And so all those skills that I've accumulated, I utilize now. It's just I had a little bit of life experience before I picked up a camera because I didn't pick up a camera until I was like 28 years old.
Yeah, wow.
And so it just meant that I had these experiences and I wasn't used to capturing my life, that now when I did grab a camera, that just found new. It felt new. And I was curious to see where it could take me, but I had all the other skills of life experience beforehand.
You sound like you're very comfortable with pivoting. Can you like give us some advice I'm one of the people, but I'm sure there's probably a lot of people out there too that probably hold on to things for too long. I feel like if you're a creative in any space and you try to create an identity and then you realize it's not for you, you're too scared to change because you're afraid of what people are going to think. Yeah. And especially online, it feels like you're failing publicly. Like people are like, oh, what about that thing that thing you've been telling everyone you are? Like you're not doing it anymore. You've spoken about all the benefits of pivoting. You know, you take these skills, but what about like those negative emotions that are tied to being afraid to change?
Yeah.
And then maybe doing it for too long and then realizing like you wasted so much time because you knew 6 months ago you didn't want to do this thing anymore.
Yeah.
But you hung on to it for too long. Like, what would you say to that guy?
Well, that idea about, before I mentioned, you've got to sacrifice something. So I was teaching, outdoor, the next level of outdoor guides. It was like a diploma course in outdoor leadership. And so there came a time where my teaching contract was going to renew. And I just got enough, business work my video work for my, my videography business at the time. Yeah. And I was like, okay, I need to, this is a moment of choice here. I need to kind of go, you know what? I'm not going to teach outdoor leadership and I'm not going to take as many groups away, but I'm going to lean more into the video. And I had that intentional, choice. I think it was $60 an hour for my casual teaching job. So it was a pretty good gig, 8 hours at $60 an hour. Man, I mean, even if for casual work, 2-3 days a week, that was a great gig. Yep. And so I was like, okay, I'm going to have to like work out how am I going to use my video work to be able to replace that income to survive. And I felt like I worked out what my worst case scenario was. Even if I got like 2 video jobs, maybe the videos paid $500 each at the time, I could be like, that's enough to live on. And I could just go up from there. And so I actually said, no, I'm not going to teach. There was like that decisive moment where that contract came through. I looked at it and I was presented with 2 pathways. And I said, now, I could always go back to teaching. I had the skills. Yep. I could always say, yeah, I'll take a group to Morocco next week.
That's bad.
So, that was, and you don't have any expenses on that. Flights are covered. You're getting paid for it. Great experience. That's cool. I was fortunate enough to have that in the back pocket, ready to go. Or worst case scenario, all that turns to shit and I can go back and be a chef. It would hurt me, but I could do it. And so I just said no to all of that. And I was like, yep, I'm going to go in on this video stuff. And then I started just kind of putting my attention to that. And I worked out, I think over the course of, I think it was every like 5 years. Yeah, I think it was around about that 5-year mark, roughly. I was doing some sort of pivot. And the pivot wasn't this great big 180-degree axis. It wasn't going, oh, I'm doing this one thing, I'm going to go do something completely opposite. Yep. It was just a slight deviation in the path. And so it was almost not noticeable in the beginning. So like, for example, the expedition stuff, I was just bringing a camera along. It seemed really subtle at first, but then as you expand out to 3-4 years, you're much further away than where you were just leading trips to now you're actually telling stories of the trips and being utilized in that manner. Yep. And it was the idea of then now, okay, I'm leading the trips with the camera. I'm kind of moving away from leading those particular trips or guiding, but now I'm just going to capture the stories on those trips. And so slight deviation in the beginning, couple of years, now that's all you're doing. And so I just made these pivots every like 4 to 5 years. Yep. And so it came like building the skills up in, story and video. Then I was like, I'm going to actually bring in some of those teaching skills that I had. And now I'm going to try and run a workshop. And I think my first workshop had like 3 people. Wow. And it was like, okay, but these 3 people are here because they want to learn. I'm just going to give them everything I know. And sometimes you don't realize how much you know until you start, teaching. True. And then it was like, all right, I've got a camera, I'm going to start teaching. 3 people, not that far away from where I currently am. And maybe I'm only doing 1 or 2 a year just to try. Yep. But then expand that to 3-4 years, you're much further away. So I think pivoting every like 4 years, I think it was roughly for me. I ended up just over time being further and further away from that chef at a 5-star dining hotel, working in a kitchen underground, not seeing the world, to now someone who can kind of work on their own, agenda. So my life is kind of designed in a way that if I want to be somewhere, whether that is overseas or I want to be at home with my cat and my girlfriend, I can be there, but I can also intentionally have some work that I'm passionate about and then I find fulfillment in and focus on that. So miles away from each other. Yep. That contrast is big because of that pivot every 4 to so years.
That's incredible. How do you set goals?
It's just an interesting question because I think I was someone who was setting a lot of goals. I was like, oh, I'd love to achieve this thing, whether that be financial or emotional or, physical. And I think the thing that I have been able to really reflect on is that rather than setting a goal as such, is just find a system that you can do repeatedly. Like just get better systems. So, if that was fitness, it'd be like, find a gym that's close or easy to attend to. So remove the resistance. And so the system might be, I'm going to attend, 3 days a week. And so for video work, in a year, I might go, what's my system for being able to be a better storyteller? Or what's my system for being able to put myself on the right track with habits to get myself into that kind of person who would embody those, habits or that lifestyle. Right. And I found that to be more effective than just setting an arbitrary goal.
That's mad.
I think the goal is nice to have. The vision board, I think that's great to have something you're aiming towards. But I think the direction is probably more important.
Yeah. That's really good.
And the systems that you put in place are the habits, are the protocols, are the boundaries that you have to support you on that direction, and that goal is probably just going to come on as like a side benefit, just because you're putting yourself in the direction. Either way, good things are going to happen.
That's fantastic. It brought to mind something that I was taught recently, and it was, I guess, rather than setting goals, it's like, who do you want to become, and how, like it's becoming the person that you want to be, and then working towards it that way. In terms of like, say, I wanted to be a podcaster. I wanted to be known as a podcaster. I can't just start a podcast and become known as one, right? And it was like,
you can.
Well, you can, but no one's going to like identify you as that. And if I show up every once a month and I don't put too much effort into it, it's not going to happen, right? So then, say that was my goal, I have to start. If I were to think, well, if I were to be a podcaster today, right? If I were to already have achieved the goal, who do I have to become to be that person? What does that guy do? And then I reverse engineer that to create systems. So the podcaster that I imagine to be would probably be reaching out to X amount of people every week. He'd probably be recording this amount of podcasts every 6 months. And you can write these things down and they become actionable goals and achievable. And then you start acting in a way that person already is, because when I first started, I wasn't a podcaster because I was doing them every 6-7 weeks. So I was doing all this other work. It wasn't really my intention. It was very hard to see myself achieving the goal as that version of myself back then. And I had to stop and think, what is the version of the person that I want to become? And what does that guy do? Even outside of podcasting, does that guy like look after his health? Does he have the energy to do it? Yeah. That guy's probably looking after his health. He's probably eating well. He's probably waking up early. He probably has enough sleep to be present in these conversations. Like you could look at yourself and be like, man, I didn't sleep well. I can't ask questions because I'm just 2 days. I'm too stressed out. I'm probably too stressed out and I've got too much on my plate to be able to do this well. And you can look at the version of who you are today and the version of who would have achieved that goal and then reverse engineer it and start implementing systems to get you there.
Yeah. I mean, the quickest way to do that is surround yourself with the people who embody those traits. It's just their normal.
Yeah.
So they might be your abnormal, but hang around those people long enough and it's just like, that's just what people do. That's what you do because it's just the normal thing that everyone does around you. So if you're hanging around people that are out partying every single night, and you're like, well, yeah, that's what we do. We all go out for drinks at, 8, maybe we do some prees, and then we go out at like midnight. We come home at 5 a.m, and I'm plastered for the rest of the week.
Yeah.
Whereas like, I'm hanging around a group of guys that are, getting up at 5 a.m. or 4 a.m. for, a run, and maybe they're going for an ocean dip. And we're getting a coffee and we're talking through some ideas and maybe new business ventures or just sharing things that could help motivate each other. Maybe we're sharing skills and then we're kind of going about our days and then we might reconnect it the next morning. We might do the same thing. And no one goes out. But what we tend to do is we tend to do an activity like, we're all going kayaking for a couple of nights and we're camping on this island, or we're going on this like road trip up the coast because there's a really cool cliff that we all want to see. So that is a very empowering environment. For some people, it'd be very abnormal. It'd be like, oh man, who's getting up at 5 for a run?
Yeah.
Whereas you put yourself around people who are doing that, it's like, oh mate, we just do that every week.
Yeah.
And so that's where you can almost shape your identity just by the people you're surrounding yourself.
Sure.
And even if those people aren't physical, you might have a parasocial relationship with people where you see and watch a lot of stuff that supports that, and you're like, oh, that's just kind of who I am. I just do that stuff. And, you might relate to some of your mentors, whether that be online or maybe it's just like a guy or a girl you're inspired by at the time. But identity is one of the hardest things to change. It hurts. When you change your identity, it's going against everything in your psychology. You want to feel safe. You want to feel like you're known for something. And the whole idea of like, if you fight for your limitations, you get to keep them. And if you change your story, you can change who you are or who you want to become. And so your story, you tie that to your identity. And a lot of people haven't really sat down and written out their story. They don't necessarily have a clear idea who they are. One of the most powerful things I think I've done in the last 24 months was sit down and write my story of like where I started as a young boy, how I grew up, but start connecting the dots and actually owning my story of how I got to where I am. And it was quite a powerful experience. And I think identity is one of those things of, yeah, you can be a storyteller or whether you want to be a podcaster, but you might need to shed something of who you were before that.
Yeah.
And the only way you really change your identity is just create enough evidence to support the person you want to become. And so let's say you want to be someone who is, more focused on health and fitness. By shedding maybe some of those bad habits and just providing yourself with more evidence that maybe you do get enough sleep. Maybe you do eat more healthy meals than maybe not so healthy meals. Maybe you do, have the evidence that you actually are someone who gets active at least however many times a week. You choose your cadence, but you just build the evidence to support your new identity. The trap, however, is if you associate something in the external world with your identity and that changes, now your identity changes. So that could be politics, it could be a diet, it could be just one idea or something or a way of doing something. If you associate that thing in the external world with your identity and all of a sudden that thing changes, a lot of people go back and they'll fight. Even though they might not know that it's wrong, they might go, oh, that political view has changed and everyone's against that now, but I need to stand where I am and fight for that because my identity is attached to it, and it's really hard to change my identity because that means now I need to create a new one. A lot of people will defend their identity. Same with changing diets and food.
Very good.
Whereas align your identity with your story, and that's something that's internal and something that you can tell differently, or you can create a version that's empowering rather than disempowering. Then your story and your identity is something you own.
Very good. What came to mind as you were just saying that is, did you say Peter McKinnon just put out his most recent video, and it was like a 30-minute podcast with a buddy of his, and it was basically it was a little vent session.
Did you say like, what's up?
No, it was a straight up pod.
Okay.
And it almost sounded like an emergency pod because he was in a bit of a like internal crisis. And the whole topic was, and I've heard a few creatives talk about this recently, not just him, there's been a lot, who basically saying like, I've spent my whole career, like when I first started, my dream was to take amazing pictures and amazing videos, like high quality. And when you first, like, you're saving your money to buy that amazing camera. And you spend all this time trying to learn the settings because you want to take just really nice, really professional looking photos and images. And then the problem that's arisen is that he spent all this time attaching his identity to like this perfectly laid out grid and everything's perfect. However, head of Instagram will come out and say, from now on, like, we're prioritizing authentic content. Therefore, it's in your best interest, if you want to survive on this platform, to take things on your phone, because we're going to push that further than we are polished content, mainly because of AI. Like, it's very hard to distinguish a really nice image from an AI image. Therefore, if you want to stand out on this platform, we suggest the authentic iPhone RAW content. And he was struggling with this because he's like, oh, I've spent so much time building up this skill set, and now you're telling me that like it's no longer worth anything on this platform. And the thing is, he was very aware that if he didn't participate in this, he was going to lose. He was losing followers. No one was engaging with his content, and there was this frustration, but also acceptance that if I don't participate, it's not going to get pushed. My numbers are going to go down. I'm not going to be successful on this platform unless I decide to play the game.
Yeah.
And the whole conversation was based on, I guess the conclusion of the conversation was like trying to find a balance of both. Because you don't want to give up, what you love. You've created an identity around it. But then there's this external thing that's constantly changing that you have to balance. Something that I wanted to ask you is like where you're at now with your brand and everything that you've achieved, how much of it is work that you genuinely want to create and want to be in versus balancing out what is probably performs best on the platform. How do you deal with that?
I mean, a lot of those perspectives are all, they want external success.
Yes.
So what they're having a conflict with is internally what they wanted to create and what they wanted to find some sort of progression or mastery in is not getting the recognition because a platform that they're relying on to share their work and to share what they're passionate about is responding better to a particular style or a particular way of doing something.
Yes.
And so what they're really discussing is an internal conflict between what they love to doing what everyone else loves.
Yes.
And so any kind of artist or professional needs to ask themselves, am I doing this for me or am I doing this for business? And so the idea here is like, what can I do to kind of either bring those two worlds together? And so I think that's where the whole conversation is coming. It's like, it's a conflict between self and the external world.
Yes.
Whereas
exactly.
if those guys still want to create beautiful images, they can still do that. But maybe what was being, where people responded a particular way has changed.
Yes.
And that's fine. What you need to do is either separate what you do for yourself and what you absolutely love, and then what you do to maybe find business success. And I think that's the conflict there. And where it gets blurry is that whether you're a personal brand or you rely heavily on your passion to be successful in order to fuel your income and your lifestyle, is that you're trying to find a way to make both align.
Yes, exactly.
And that conversation now, I think it is changing. I mean, I don't have all the answers, but conversations that I've had even with students in workshops and other creatives who are coming up, and they come to me and they're like, I want to keep things more authentic but less polished, but I also want to make sure it's good and people respond to it.
So like the sweet balance of the two.
Yeah, and I said there's three pillars, like three core foundational pillars that you can build your content on. And it's either you tell a great story, or you provide something of really high value, or you focus really on good quality. And so, the idea here is that even if you're just talking to camera, if you're telling a great story, your audio doesn't have to be fantastic. Maybe the lighting's slightly off. But if there's a really good story, people are going to be invested. They're going to want to get to the answer of it.
Yes.
If you're providing, some content that's high value, and whether that's a lesson, whether that's entertainment, whether that's a feeling, even if you're not telling a great story, even if it's not shot in the best way or presented in the best way, if it's something really valuable for people, they're gonna stick around and they're gonna get something from it because it's valuable. And the same with quality. If people go traveling and there's a beautiful landscape, maybe the sounds are incredible, or we've all heard those ASMR videos. People are gonna stick around just purely for the quality aspect.
Yes.
And so I tell people and I tell my students that just lean in on one of those pillars. However, if you do want to, maybe go that little step further and excel, try to combine them. Try to tell a great story that provides some sort of value, and then make sure you present it in a way that maybe sounds really clear, maybe either looks great, or maybe just it seems intentional. And so story, value, quality, you can do that. You can focus on one of those pillars separately, or you can combine all three. I think it doesn't matter whether, it's not that authentic, or I don't know if it's what I want to create. I'd say just ignore that. That's just noise. Just focus on, are you telling a great story, providing some value? Is it something of quality that you want to see in the world, or can you combine all three? And so to go back to one of my students where they were asking me like, hey, I want to make something, but I don't want it to come across like too crazy polished. I would always say, why don't you lean on one of those pillars, Let's say you film something on an iPhone, and if you're talking, just make sure your voice is really clear. It's okay. Don't go too crazy in the lighting. Maybe you can make sure the colors are okay, but just make sure your voice sounds really good, and you can still shoot it on your iPhone, or you know, whatever you're using at the time.
Yes.
That would be my response to that.
Very good. And getting to that point, if someone were to want to build their personal brand online, how important is showing up in front of the camera? Is it a non-negotiable?
Yeah, pretty much. I think, I think if personal brand, it's personality. Your brand is around who you are, what you represent. You're multifaceted, but you can lean in on one particular thing that you want to be known for. And I think, you know, I've just been away in LA, and I was surrounded by, you know, a lot of different creators. You know, some that are kind of, you know, upcoming, in the sense that they're building their audience and starting to nurture their community, to some that have like 20 million type success. Established. Like, but a lot of eyes. So they're basically their own media platforms. And so the one thing that you can take away from all of those, you know, all of those people is that they are either known or they really understand their style. So they're known for something, or they understand their style or how they show up. And I think that's, if you're going to nurture your personal brand, it's understanding what you stand for, how you show up, and maybe how you present the message that you're going to try and get across. And that can either come through just a style or just a way you inject your personality. For me, a lot of the time, you know, I'm not doing talking to camera pieces. I've been encouraged to do that more, and I probably should do it more, to be honest. But a lot of it is I try to just give an example of visual storytelling, and I show up and I go, this is visual storytelling, and I actually try to demonstrate I know what I'm doing rather than just tell people I know what I'm doing. And I think that's been, you know, a point of difference in my, you know, in my personal brand. Is that I want people to be able to go, oh, we can see that this guy is actually walking the walk.
True.
He's not going, here's how you tell a great story. He's going, here's an example. You know, he's like, without saying any words, can you follow some sort of change that's happening on screen? And I'll experiment with different ideas. And that's just because I enjoy it and I want to do it, and I find it interesting and I want to see more of it.
True. But you're also just real. You're a good example of someone who's been able to do it like without needing to rely so heavily on speaking directly to camera. Like a lot of people say that you have, like, non-negotiable, you have to. You know, you're an example that like you don't necessarily really do. Like you've seen success without having to sit there and feel awkward and talk in front of camera, which I think is really hard to do.
It is hard to do, and you know, I've had my moments. I mean, it does help that, you know, some of the past skills, you know, I've presented on TV and done that before and shown up on camera. And I've also talked in front of big groups of people.
Yeah, exactly.
And
like
so,
you're someone who can, like I've got the skill.
I get nervous doing it.
Yeah.
There's nothing more awkward than filming yourself talking in public.
Yeah.
Terrifying. It's
so hard, man.
It's the worst thing. You know, my internal dialogue is like, they think I'm an absolute douchebag. You know, they're like, this guy probably just has like 50 family and friends following him along. Like,
man, totally.
And sometimes you've got to get through the cringe.
Yeah.
Like you've got to go through like what you want.
What are some tips on like not being so awkward? Do you have any?
Yeah, I mean, just knowing what you're going to say.
Yeah. Being prepared.
Yeah, being prepared definitely helps. I mean, you can also, a little bit of practice. There's an idea here that it's like if you put your phone on in the car and just talk and just randomly go for like 4 minutes and then just do it again the next day. You don't have to do anything with it.
You don't have to post it.
But it just gets you in the habit of like just seeing how you show up. And, you know, there's 3 kind of ways you can go about seeing how you show up on camera. You can film yourself talking. You close your eyes and you can just listen to how your voice sounds. You can watch it without the audio just to see what your kind of, you know, your mannerisms are on camera. And then you can also, you know, do the third one is just see how it comes across as a whole. That's a good start. But I would say to show up on camera, just know what you're going to say. At least have some sort of like dot point format.
So true, right? You can appear more confident without, like you can look at someone without hearing them and you can be like, that's a confident guy.
Yes. And if you can't remember everything you're going to say, just do it in sentences. That's a really common format that people do when they talk to the camera is they like do it in a sentence and maybe they change the location or they change their sentence and they just cut it up. And that way, you know, it removes the pressure there. But
so true. It's so hard to remember something that goes for like a minute.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, just know what you're going to say. take a deep breath, and try to talk to the camera. A lot of people tend to like look away a lot. And so if you're talking to the camera, think of it as someone you're talking to. Look at them. Don't just look away and fumble and just appear disinterested. You know, human connection is like, you make eye contact when you talk to people.
Totally.
And sure, don't be too awkward. Look away. Otherwise, you're going to look like you're staring them down. Maybe blink occasionally. But the biggest tip is just to know what you're going to say, look at the person, but then use maybe 60% less words than you were originally going to
That's
say.
One of the tips that I took away from this topic that you said, use 80% less words than you think you need. And I was like, that's what I need. I ramble, man. And I watch back to things that I say, or even when I'm just on my own speaking directly to camera, and it would take me a minute to get to the point. Because I just keep going, and I'll say the same thing, I'll just use different words, and then I'll finish, and I'll look back at it, and I'm like, I said that 3 times in 3 different ways.
Yes, exactly. And because what you're doing is you're trying to convince yourself that you know what you're talking about. And so just get it across quickly. There's a technique in storytelling called wrap up fast. And so when you watch a movie or you watch a story or you listen to a story, they get to the point. It's like having a conversation with someone at a party and they're telling a joke or a story, and then they get to the point and then they just keep on talking. And you're like, mate.
It's like, how long am I going to be sitting here for?
And you're like, we got there. You're like, I got it. And they're still going. And so the idea, even in storytelling, is just wrap up fast, get to the point, but then give people a little something at the end. And that could be an emotion, an idea, a takeaway. You think of your favorite movie, and there's usually like a little something to spark a conversation afterwards. Or they're like, oh, I wonder what really happened. Like, I think Inception, it's the little pieces like spinning on the table. And you're like, wait, was he dreaming?
So true.
And so you got to the point. You knew the outcome of the story, but there was a little takeaway at the end.
I didn't watch it, but from my TikTok, they say the same about Stranger Things. Apparently, the little girl, no one knows what happened to her. They don't tell you. And they're just debating whether she's still alive, whether she's dead, what planet she's on. And they just left it, like the series. And then to the point where they thought, surely there's another episode, because we just don't know. And that's it.
Yeah, you just kind of keep people talking.
Yeah.
That's the little something that they've kind of, they've wrapped it up, but they're giving you a little something to keep the dialogue happening. It keeps it alive, the conversation going. Just get to the point, wrap it up, but 80% less words, absolutely.
Yeah, very good. You're someone who comes across as confident. I think so. And I think a lot of showing up in front of camera, but like showing up online comes to like, you've got to have some confidence in what you're saying, your identity, who you are. Even when you spoke about your workshop, like the way that you said like 3 people showed up, it was mad. Where like that would stop people from doing something like that. Only 3 people are going to show up, and that lack of confidence stops them from even trying. Whereas like you seem to see the positive side, the takeaways, the lessons. Where do you get that from?
Evidence. Confidence comes from building a body of evidence that supports who you are and maybe what you're doing. Even if you're starting to doubt, if I go into a workshop, and I think it was like New York 2024, December, I think I had 6 people in that workshop, 7 people. And, maybe there was some like, I announced it late or, there could have been a bit more focus on like pushing it. But I was like, you know what, those 6 people are going to get a great experience. How do I know that? Because I've done all these other things and people have told me like, I got so much out of that. And so, that's one example of like where I show up, and I'm confident, even though I've got a small group of people, that they're going to get a lot out of the day. And they did. It was one of the most rewarding days I had because it was so intimate, but it meant that I could spend time with them. And so even if I'm showing up online and, let's say I create something, I'm like, oh, this is kind of, this kind of sucks. It's not my best work. I know that throughout everything I've created beforehand, even though this might not be my best work, someone's going to connect with it. And so I only have that because I have a reference point from before. It's the same with like, going into a gym. I mean, we're in the back of a gym right now. And it's like, you go in, your first couple of days, you're kind of awkward. You're like, oh, I'm not that confident. Maybe you'll ask for help. Maybe you won't. Maybe we'll just try to work it out. You see you in a year's time, you're walking in, you're giving people a high five. You're like, Jono, you're looking good. And you're going in, you're training, and because you've done it so many times beforehand, you're more confident. You grab the weights that you know that you can use. It's the same with any kind of skill. I still get nervous going into a big room of people and about to talk to them, but I know, I think about everything that's come before, and I know like whatever happens, I actually know that people are going to be like, this was fantastic.
So true.
Even if I stumble, that's just being human.
Yeah.
Even if I stutter, you know, sometimes I'll have a coffee and I'll be like mid talking, my mouth dries up, and I just let people know, guys, I can't talk. I just have a drink of water. And just being human and knowing that those those kind of mishaps or those like being human moments happen.
Yes.
Are absolutely fine, but I've got enough evidence to support what's going to come after. And I think now, even when I challenge myself with doing something new, I know that has to feel a little bit awkward and clunky in the beginning, like just build the thing and then iterate after. I know if I do it enough times, I'll become more confident in it, as long as I build the evidence to go, you know what, you're figuring this out, you're working it out. Think of the last one. It worked. What didn't work? Go do it again. You become that little bit more. So it's built.
Yeah. So it's part of the process.
Yeah. And you can fake it a little bit as well. Like you can come in and you can kind of put on your game face and you can kind of like maybe do a power pose, you know, arms up, you know, behind stage or anything like that. That can definitely help. And then you go out and you do that thing and then you think about it the next time you go and do that thing again. That definitely helps as well.
Yeah. Very good. Man, these are all very good takeaways. I've noticed I've noticed a little series you do on your birthday, which I think is great. And you list a whole bunch of things that you wish you knew when you were younger. When you were the 21-year-old version of Bryan. And a lot of these like really hit for me, man.
I can't remember who it was, actually. I think I put these in a newsletter as well
Did you?
that I sent out. And one of my...
Did you get a good response? Some of these are really good,
It was a fantastic response. One of my my subscribers actually sent me, he replied to my email, and he'd put it into an AI podcast. And it actually created a podcast on the 15 topics. He was like, mate, you know, I hope you don't mind. I did this. I gave it a listen. And I was like, damn, it's kind of good.
Wow. I've heard that they can do this now. That's sick.
It was wild. I mean,
how'd that make you feel?
It was kind of weird knowing it and hearing it back. But I was kind of into it, to be honest.
But they're solid points, man. Like I want to touch on a few of them. There's a couple that like really hit me, especially with what I'm doing. Like the first two that I wrote down was like, if you ask better questions, you'll find better answers. I'm like, fucking, here we go.
I mean, I read a book growing up. I mean, I'll actually even say growing up. I'd say it was like 26, 27, going through a pretty rough time in life, just trying to work out who I am. And, you know, I'd read, I think the book, Tony Robbins, like Awaken the Giant Within. And it was a really powerful book for me. And one of the points he made in that book was, if you ask better questions, you'll always find better answers. It's like, as people and as humans, we'll always find the answer to a question. Like one way or another, you know, whether that's a limiting belief or like, why do I suck? And you'll be like, oh, because of this, this, and this. Or it's like, what could I do to expand in this area and like get better? Or what could I do to take my business or my content, you know, to the next level in 3 months? What would I really have to do? You'll find an answer. So ask better questions, you'll find better answers.
Very good. It's so true. And it is that. You could be in that situation where 3 people show up to your workshop and it's like, what question are you asking yourself from that situation? It's like, or how can I get 4 people to show up next time? Or 5 people to show up?
Or what's the best thing that could happen with only having 3 people? It's like, you could actually do so much more with those 3 people that they're going to be like, mate, this was like epic.
Very good. Another good one in terms of what I'm doing, listen more than you speak. Give people a chance to contribute, be heard, and be vulnerable. That's something that I've learned through doing this. You know, just a lot of it is just not speaking. There are so many times I look at people and I'm like, stop interrupting. You know what I mean? Like giving someone the space and the platform to just be themselves and tell their story. And there's a power in listening and giving people that attention. A lot of people don't really get the opportunity to actually be heard too. I found, you know, and then when you give them that opportunity, like it's respected.
It is. I mean, some people, you can tell, like when you talk to some people, they really just want an opportunity to tell their story. And sometimes you're like, oh, maybe I need to take that silence away because we're going to be here for 2 hours talking about, you know, just your childhood trauma or something going on. I mean,
there's a time and place.
There's a time and place. I mean, I enjoy an awkward pause. I actually don't mind it. And I've noticed that this has changed as I've got older because I used to be quite extroverted, especially in my early 20s. Being a guide, I was like, hey guys, how you doing? Like, you know, I would have this real kind of loud...
You have to be, right?
Well, because I was, you know, I'd get the whole energy up. And sometimes that could come across as a bit... like a bit kind of like a bit full on in the sense of like maybe you don't give people as much space. And I think throughout my career and also as I've just got older, I've become less patient for bullshit, but I've become more patient with people. And so I know that, you know, if someone's got a moment and maybe they're processing an idea, sometimes a little awkward pause is enough for them to just continue the conversation and open up it just that little bit more. Or maybe you just, you know, you ask a question, or maybe you make a statement and you just let it hit for a little bit, and then someone might just kind of, you know, kick things off.
This is like speaks to everything that your whole story. Reality is negotiable. If you want something and you can communicate it, you'll move faster toward the life you want. Something that I learned throughout my creative journey is like the more I had clarity, the easier it was for me to move towards where I wanted to be. And at the beginning, I had none of that. I was like trying everything. I was all over the place, overwhelmed, and it felt like I was so busy but getting nowhere. Until like you stop, you reflect, you realize like what are the things you really want to do, and it made it a whole lot easier for me to know what opportunities to say yes to and what to say no to, because the like clarity and being able to create my reality became so much easier because I knew where I wanted to go, and when an opportunity came, it was very easy. It's like, does this get me closer to there, or like does it not move me there in any way? And I went from a person who just couldn't say no and just said yes to everything and just felt exhausted, to being way more intentional with like the work I did and like the moves I made, I guess. You're someone who seems really good at this. I feel like you've had a lot of experience in terms of just creating your own reality and just doing the thing that's going to get you there.
Yeah, I think if you pair communication with any type of good skill set, that allows you to go so much further. It's like you can be really good at a thing, but if you can't communicate it, like people are obviously going to come to you, maybe if you're really well known for something, but you don't have the opportunity to maybe go a little bit bigger.
Very good.
Or you can't allow people to come in because they don't really know what you're about. But if you can be an effective communicator and say, here's something I actually am skilled at and I'm good at doing this thing, and I can communicate how I do this thing and how it could benefit you or solve a problem, then you're in the space of you can ask for your want and you can effectively communicate what your needs are, and that will enable you to kind of grow and, you know, get some momentum in whatever craft that you've got. Those two skill sets, leverage with communication, also like being good at something and being able to communicate it, are going to be super powerful. And the idea, you know, there's a quote that came to mind as you were saying that. It's like, just because you're doing more doesn't mean you're getting more done.
Yeah, correct.
And so if you can be clear on what you want and you can communicate your needs, and that may be for a business or a creative coming up in the industry, it could be just their standard rate. Rather than going, oh, what's your budget? And just going, here's what I need to make this work. And just being really clear about why, you know, this will allow me to achieve my best work, or maybe you want to, you know, get half of the invoice paid before you start a project. You're like, I'm a net positive operator. I want to make sure that I've got some funds to start building this project before it all, you know, starts coming together. Just being able to communicate what you need, you'll be actually quite surprised how people respond. It's like asking for the pay rise at work or the promotion. If you can effectively communicate what you want, you can effectively progress.
I feel like a lot of that comes back to confidence, you know, being like having the confidence to say, I am good at this, or this is my rate, or I want to pay rise.
I think it's confidence, but I think it's also just knowing your own kind of standard and just fighting for what you or your value or your worth. There's always going to be things that, you know, try to come in and distract from that.
But do you think like your reality can be like dictated by other people if you don't have the confidence?
Yes, absolutely. Because if you don't, and it's more, I think, self-assurance in many ways. If you can be self-assured that you're happy to say no to some things, and you understand the consequences of saying no. So whether that be you've got a request coming in and you're so used to saying yes, but all those yeses are burning you out. And so if you can go, okay, you know what? I'm comfortable enough to say no. That allows you space to say yes for when the things that really align with you come in that matter. And so I think if you're not able to kind of set your own boundaries and communicate them, then people are going to kind of pull you and push you in different directions. And you're going to feel like you're tugged everywhere and you don't really have control. That leads to burnout. That leads to confusion. You're feeling a little bit lost. Whereas I've found one of the best decisions I made in my own business and my own life is just saying no. and being okay to say no. Like if someone's saying, can you do this thing? You know, I'll pay you this amount, or can you do this for our business, or can you help here? You'd be like, unfortunately, I can't. Like you can say no in a nice way. You don't have to be a dick about it. But what you're doing is like you're setting your own boundaries, and then when something comes in, you know, I have this thing called a fuck yes. So it's like in life, you're gonna, or even in your year, you'll have your fuck yeses, and maybe that's who you want to work with, or the thing that you want to make, or the place that you want to go. Everything else is taking time away and taking energy away that won't allow you to say that big yes.
Yep. Very good. And as you were saying that, you spoke earlier about like making sacrifices. I think it's also important to know the things that you're not willing to sacrifice.
Yeah.
I think you'll probably relate to this. Like for me, I learned that my health was something I'm not willing to sacrifice. Like I was a personal trainer before being a creative for the longest 15 years. And it's a part of me. So and I've realized when that gets taken away from me, like when I can't train or eat well, I don't feel my best. Now, even like spending time with my partner, right? That's something I'm not willing to sacrifice. And it's knowing those things that you're like. Obviously, there are things you need to sacrifice in order to have what you want, but you also need to realize that there are things that non-negotiables. I'm not sacrificing this because it's going to lead to a lesser version of me, and I'm not going to be happy. It's not all about, you know, creative work and career. There are so many other things that make us happy. For some people, it's just socializing. Like, I don't want to be alone sitting in my laptop all week. I need time with my mates. And being aware of those things that you're not willing to sacrifice, I think it's just as important as realizing that to reach certain goals, sacrifices are going to have to be made.
And I think to build on what you're saying there, I think that works as long as you're not sitting on the extremes. Because if you're too rigid in anything, then, you know, you don't have the ebb and flow of life coming in. So, you know, for example, I was over in LA on a project. I think it was like a 10-day project. It was quite intensive on, like, I had to show up. I had to be attentive. I had to work on the thing. Yeah. And, you know, maybe I couldn't get as many, you know, gym days as I could.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
maybe
You're right.
I chose to sacrifice a little bit of my training for sleep.
Very good.
Because that was the sacrifice I was willing to make.
Yes.
But I know that I've built a foundation where that's okay.
Yep.
You know, when I used to be a guide, you know, I've trained and kept fit, you know, basically my whole life since I was like 18, 19.
Yeah.
And so I've got, you know, decades of training. And so with that in mind, I know that I could sacrifice a couple of weeks here and there.
Yes.
That's absolutely fine.
Yep.
So I think sitting on the extremes can
right.
prevent you from like, oh, I'm never going to sacrifice a gym session. And all of a sudden now you become so rigid that maybe you're saying no to things that would actually move your needle forward. Whereas if you're, you know, we talk about sacrifice, you're like, well, actually, it's okay. I can sacrifice a little bit of that knowing that this is only going to be for a short period of time and I'm not on the extreme ends. That gives you a little bit of ebb and flow with life. So
true.
Sacrifices are great, but don't sit on the extremes.
Very good. You're right. And I've had those periods. I've had time where I'm like, I know the next like 2 months are going to be busy. And I have the conversation with a girlfriend. And she's like, that's cool. Like, just lock in for the next, you know, I know this isn't a forever thing. You're going to be busy for the next, like, go for it. And it's understanding that.
It's the more days on than off, you know. If you think of any kind of behavior or something that makes you feel good, as long as you have more days in the year that you're doing that thing, that's okay. You're winning.
Yeah, true.
It's like if there's a little imbalance with that shift, then you're like, okay, maybe I need to move it up.
Very good.
On a higher priority.
Leads to your next point. Success is not linear.
Definitely not.
Right? The world isn't fair. Don't expect it to be. But persistence pays off. So if it's important to you, stick with it.
Yeah, I mean, that idea of like it takes 10 years to have overnight success.
Yeah, true.
I mean, what you're doing, especially if something means something to you, is you're like stacking little dominoes. You know, the dominoes can start really small. And sometimes some of the dominoes are bigger. You know, you feel like you're putting in so much effort and, you know, nothing's tipping. There's a great analogy. I think this was in James Clear book,
Atomic
Habits, where he talks about diminishing returns, the value of diminishing returns. And I think the analogy was about an ice cube in a room. And the room is, you know, it's cold enough to keep that ice cube, you know, rock solid. And then the metaphor is that every effort you make towards your goal, you're going into that room and you're turning it up, you know, 0.5 of a degree. And so you're doing this day in, day out, or whatever your cadence is for consistency. And you might be doing this for a year or two, and that ice cube is not melting. You're looking at it, you're like, oh, and it's the value of diminishing returns. You just can't see any return for your effort. And then what will happen is that you'll go into that room, you'll put a little bit of effort into that thing that you're trying to do, and all of a sudden you'll click it up half a degree, and that ice cube just melts fast. Those dominoes hit, and all the dominoes, fall down. And all of a sudden you've got, that big trajectory upwards.
Yes.
You're like, okay, holy shit, it's happening.
Sometimes
you're ready for it, sometimes you're not. But the big thing is, if it means something to you, then show up regularly. It's unreasonable that you won't find success in something if you're doing it consistently, especially for a good amount of time.
Yeah, of course. I feel like so much of my creative journey, especially at the start, was seeing hundreds of dominoes and not knowing which one was the biggest or which one was going to knock down the most. So I was like just hitting them all.
Yeah.
and I'd constantly just be thinking like, even while I was doing certain things, I'd be doing it in my mind thinking, I know there's someone else out there doing this like so much easier than I'm doing it right now. I just don't know. And I think that's where like the power of mentors comes in. And like even attending workshops and learning from other people is like you get to hear from someone else who said, oh no, I've knocked that domino down. It only knocks down like 2, man. Hit this one, it's going to give you 10.
Yeah.
So for me, like mentorship has helped me out a lot in that space because I've spent a lot of time just looking at all these things I have to do. And I'm like, just looking at it, trying to figure it out myself. It's like, which one's the most important out of all of these? And just guessing.
I mean, there's also a bit of luck involved as well.
Yeah, true.
Like, the world isn't fair.
Yeah.
You don't expect it to be.
Yeah.
I think some people will, put something out and maybe they've just got that little bit of it factor, or maybe they just got in something at the right time and there was a good little bit of luck involved. And all of a sudden it just hits. And it hits for them. And, that comparison is stealing your joy because you're like, well, why isn't this happening for me? And that just looks different for everyone. And, and that's okay. And I think, even success looks different for everybody. And I think there's a trap too that people get in is they see the success of where someone is, but they don't necessarily want to do everything that person did to get there.
Yeah.
We idolize people that, maybe we don't know their backstory. We don't know all the effort behind the scenes.
True.
And the whole idea is like, if you knew how much effort or the things that someone has done to get to where they are, you might question of whether you actually want that thing.
True.
Even like running a podcast, people see the conversation. They're like, man, conversations seem fun.
Yeah.
I like talking to people.
Yeah.
I like talking to interesting people.
Yes.
But then what they don't see is all the back end of the preparation, the research, the setup, the editing afterwards. So there's always a hidden cost behind the scenes that you don't see.
Yes. Correct.
And that is across every industry.
Yep.
Everything has its like grass is greener kind of, this is what you see on the outside, and there's always a hidden curtain behind the scenes that you don't always get to see unless you attempt or at least get an insider look at that industry.
So true. That was the positives of this is what Peter McKinnon came to realize. He's like, by showing that he was trying to play your game, it's like, well, what are the benefits of me doing this? And it was that. It's like humanizing the experience and making people see the things that go on behind this. And I think that's why that type of content actually performs now.
Yeah.
Because people are showing the raw and the unedited side and the work that goes on behind the polished work that we see with creative work.
That conversation is all about building depth and especially trying to resonate with an audience and a community.
Yeah.
There's a great analogy, actually. I think I heard this from Stephen Bartlett. He was talking about, I think there was like a charity soccer match over in the UK, and they brought in the celebrity A-listers and they brought in the YouTubers, the podcasters and the streamers. And, everyone's coming out on stage with their niche or their platform.
Yep.
And so we had, the Hollywood A-listers come on and everyone in the crowd, it's like 40, 50,000 people. Everyone's like, yay. Not much of an uproar. The YouTubers come out and all of a sudden, all right, the crowd's getting up and they're like a little bit of support for that. Then we had the podcasters. The podcasters are like, awesome. The crowd's kind of like clapping and cheering. Then the streamers come out, all hell breaks loose.
Yeah.
You might as well be at FIFA World Cup. It's like people are going absolutely nuts.
Yes.
And the idea behind that, and they worked out the reason why, it comes to depth. And so depth is built over time. And it's built through the conversations that you have with an audience member.
Yes.
Someone watching, they feel that parasocial connection. And so if you think of short form content, there's only so much you can build, depth wise, unless you're doing, maybe events and things like that and actually nurturing a community in a different way. You think of Hollywood A-listers, they may be doing a movie, once every 1 year or 2 years. Whereas YouTubers, they're showing up, half an hour at a time, maybe every week. And so a couple of hours a month, people are starting to feel that connection and that depth, like Peter.
Yes.
And then, you've got the podcasters, an hour or 2 hours. They're starting to really understand the person. And then streamers, they're documenting everything in their life. They're like, come with me. They're like,
some of them are like 24 hours. Yeah, they're sleeping. More than 24 hours.
You're sleeping.
Yeah.
But you're eating. You're building the depth the whole time. And so, audiences respond to depth.
Very good. Do you think that that also plays a role when trying to create a niche? Like, how niche does someone get because you're creating a deeper audience rather than being too broad?
I think there's a couple of different viewpoints on niches. I think there's one side of the camp that'll be like, you want to be known for something.
Yes.
And you want to lean in on that skill set, and people can get an idea of who you are, what you're making.
Yes.
And so that comes across really clear. Then there's the other camp of personal branding saying you're a multifaceted human. And so someone might connect with you, let's say for marathons or triathlons. And they will go, you know what, I do that too. And so, but then, that person's also teaching business.
Yes.
And so then they'll be like, but I'm also interested in business. So they'll see more of themselves in you. And so one side of the camp is saying, be multifaceted, show up in different ways, because that will allow people to be like, relate to your experience in one of different ways. So it will create a deeper emotional connection. It'll allow more depth. Whereas the niche aspect is like people are interested in this thing and they really just want to hone in on that thing, but they don't really understand any more about you other than that thing.
True.
And so I think both can be effective.
Yep.
I think the one that builds more depth is definitely the multifaceted approach. But I think what you also need to consider when you look at both, one going heavy on a niche, heavy on personal branding, or being a multifaceted brand, and you show up in different ways. I think you just need to strike a balance of, okay, is it really clear what I stand for, and can they understand a little bit more about other aspects that they might relate to?
That's cool. I like that a lot, and I also think just not broadening just because you feel you need to appeal to everyone.
That's right.
I think it's important, and something that I realized recently, well, I don't know, I just think it's really interesting. I went to the Bad Bunny concert last night. It was fantastic.
A few people I know went to that.
Loved it. So much fun. This guy is a worldwide mega star right now. And leading up to it, I would just go to podcasts. I just listen to his interviews, and a critique that he's been getting a lot lately, Super Bowl, same as last night. Interviewer says, you go to these concerts that are predominantly English speaking, you don't say a single word of English, like not one. To the point, even further, in his lyrics, he speaks a Spanish slang that only Puerto Ricans would understand. And the interviewer's like, why don't you care to appeal to anyone? Why don't you try to speak English? What about the people that don't understand the Spanish lyrics that you say when you speak Puerto Rican? He just looked her dead in the eyes and says, I don't care.
Yeah.
That's it. Like, this is who I am. This is to the point where people respect it. He's like so Puerto Rican that people are like, this guy is so deep in his roots. He cares about his country and his people, and he's elevating them. Like, that's his draw card.
He stands for something.
Yes. But that's going mega niche to the point where he's being critiqued and people are telling him, go broad. And a lot of us will just fall for that. We'll be like, oh yeah, we have to appeal to everybody. And he just sat there and said, I don't care. Megastar.
I think I taught a cohort last year, and it was online. I had a guy who's a pilot, and I think he was speaking Spanish as well, and he was doing a lot of his content in Spanish because he's trying to help other pilots coming into the industry. And he was like, should I make stuff in English?
Yeah.
He's like, I can speak English as well.
Sure.
But he's like, I really love this audience, that can speak Spanish. And so I think the conversation we had was about what feels right for him. Does he think that it would benefit him, and does it feel good for him to be able to kind of do some stuff in Spanish, or just let people translate it? And I think, the example you gave with Bad Bunny, I don't think I've ever said Bad Bunny in my life. Is that he knows, this is who I am.
Yes.
I'm not going to be speaking English. People are coming to see me for me.
Yep.
They will know that they're going to have a Spanish experience, and who knows, maybe they'll download Duolingo and they'll start learning some words.
My girlfriend, for the last 3 days straight, on Duolingo learning Spanish.
Great. You know, the young boy wants an apple. Like, you know, if he says that in Spanish, people are going to be like, okay.
Yeah, incredible. Like that whole experience, I spent the last week just on it. I get into it way too much, but that was something that I realized, and I just thought it was so powerful. Especially when like we get stuck in, and the thing is with everything, like I'm sure there are also outliers. Like there are going to be people that do the complete opposite,
of course,
and share everything, and they're doing great as well.
Absolutely.
So it's not to say that that's the only way, but very interesting, and I just love how he does that.
I think people are drawn to if you have a boundary within yourself, or you stand up and you're not willing to compromise on something that goes maybe against who you are or what you think other people want.
Yes.
You're doing something based on what you feel is right. And I think people are drawn to that because they go, you know what, here's someone who isn't afraid just to be themselves and to say no with anything that challenges that.
Yeah.
And that doesn't mean that, you know, Bad Bunny can't change and he might incorporate some English.
Yeah, sure.
Just because he might see that it allows him to connect a little bit deeper maybe with the English-speaking audience.
Yep.
But what he's currently doing is he is saying, you know, at the moment, this is who I am, and I don't necessarily need to change that for anyone else. If I decide to change it, I hold the power.
Yeah.
He's not being dictated by an external response or external source.
Yeah, he's created his own reality.
Yeah.
Getting up to the end now, if there, this is kind of a two-part question, but like if there's someone out there who feels like they have a really good story or they have something valuable to say, but they feel like they're holding back a bit, or they don't know how to do it. They don't know how to tell their story. Like, what advice would you give? Like, where do you start? And I guess if this were a two-part question, even like me, say I wanted to tell my story, I feel like I've lived a whole life. There's so much that I could tell, and then I stop and I think how much of it is relevant. How much I don't want to tell a story. You don't want it to go forever. Like you've done a lot. How do you extract the best parts of your story to start telling it?
I think first would be just understanding your own story.
Yeah, taking the time.
Yeah, if you're going to share it and...
What are you looking for? You've done a million things. Like, what are you looking for? Like, it's so hard.
In someone else's story?
Yeah, in anyone's story.
I think I want to know where they're heading and why. I think I'm looking for like, what are you aiming towards?
Yeah.
And what's making you aim towards that thing? And then I go, okay, great, I can understand that. What's some of the context? Give me give me a little bit of the backstory of why that means something for you. And now I want to know what you're doing to get there.
Oh, bro, yeah, very good.
And so understanding your story is just like, you know, I mentioned earlier, one of the most powerful things I did was like lay it all out and just understand what the key pillars were, and you can work out where the pivot points were. What were those moments that, you know, pointed you in a particular direction and what led to them?
Yes.
And so I think laying out your story, you will see the moments or the chapters, if you want to call them, the chapters that kind of jump out on the page.
Yes.
But you don't know those chapters unless you write them down. Sure, you can think it down, but writing it down
I need
allows...
to see it.
It's
I need
physical.
to see it, yeah.
And so you do that. Maybe get some photos or something to kind of trigger a memory around that as well.
Very good.
And then for anyone that doesn't know you and you're like, okay, I'm going to share this story, it's like the first thing they want to know is like, what are you doing? Like, where are you going and why do you want to go there?
Yeah.
And I think you could almost start, it's almost like starting in the middle.
Yes.
It's like, great. Now that's enough to spark curiosity of someone to be like, well, tell me a little bit more about why that means something to you. And that might allow you, okay, now I've just got to go back a moment, but don't worry, we're going to come back to the actual challenge itself.
Yeah.
And then people will be like, why do you want to go to that thing? And now you can jump ahead.
Yeah.
And you'd be like, well, actually, I want to get to here because when I was younger, you know, I had an experience as a child with a mentor who I was really inspired by, and maybe my family was in a rough position, but this mentor really helped me with a mindset that allowed me to kind of push through these limitations that I had set from my early days. And so now what people are doing, they're starting to build a little bit of a story, but they started in the middle of where is this person going? Why are they wanting to go there? And then what you can do is you can actually share your whole story. And sometimes I find that, you know, if we're talking about how to share this online, you know, a carousel could be fantastic for that. People can scroll through at their own page. They can, at their own pace, they can flick through.
You've got a great story carousel. Went through yours, really good.
That was the intention of laying it all out. I was like, how do I communicate this? It was empowering for me, but then it also gave context for others. And, you know, maybe because a lot of my my stuff is visual sequences, visual storytelling. There's some sort of change that happens on screen. I needed something to allow people to understand a little bit more about my background, but also maybe a chance to build a little bit more depth. If people were interested in the work, maybe they could understand a little bit more about where I'm going and where I've come from.
Yes.
And so that story is just a way to kind of, help people understand a little bit more of the context of what they're seeing.
Yes.
And so I think for anyone that wants to, create videos around their story, I think starting in a place of direction and why is a great position. There's a storytelling concept called CAR, and so context, adversity, resolution. And I think with any, framework of helping people understand where you are and where you're going, just give them a little bit of context, show them some sort of change, whether that's positive, negative, emotional, physical, and then just have some sort of resolution or an answer. Maybe it's an outcome, maybe it's like the next step that you're wanting to take. I think that can be a really good framework mixed in with a starting point for people.
Nice. As you were saying all that, I feel like I've taken in a lot of the lessons that you've taught me today. And because it's something that I've been wanting to do, like have that piece of work, whether it's a carousel or a video that tells my story. But I was like, how do I do it? And as you were saying that, you're right. It's like if I was to structure this in any way, I feel like I'm at a point now, I'm in the middle. And it's like having clarity on where you want to be. And then the things in the past, you'd almost use that like a therefore concept or because of. Like these things, because of what happened at this point in my life, I am now here. And because I'm here, therefore, I'm now trying to reach this goal.
Great.
Right?
You've got the framework, yeah.
That's the framework. And then it makes you highlight the things that got you to this point.
Yes.
So it could be, I was a personal trainer and I reached a point where I just didn't feel fulfilled. I was doing the same thing over and over. I was waking up at 5 a.m. and I didn't feel my best. Therefore, I am now in this space. And I've attached those two moments.
Yeah, I mean, it's the classic quote from Steve Jobs, you can only join the dots looking backwards.
Yeah.
And so the cause and effect, what you're doing is understanding where you are now, but what led to getting you to this point.
Yeah, that.
And so telling your story by using cause and effect is a really powerful way for people to actually understand how the dots are linked together.
And then the future makes sense because of where you are now.
I mean, that's exactly right. I mean, the future's always unknown.
But where you're trying to get to.
Exactly right.
Yeah, the goal.
Yeah. Your path ahead, you at least have your compass set.
Yes.
You know the direction you're heading.
Yeah.
No matter where the wind's going to try to take you, but you're going to try to get back to that course.
Correct. I'm like that too. I have like this North Star. I don't really know, but it's vague, but I know the direction.
And I think if you're building the habits and you're building the systems to support the person or the direction that you want to become or where you want to be, then that's the most important thing. Sure, it's nice to have a couple little goals, but think of them as little nice little kind of detours on the way, like a nice little kind of scenic spot to go, that was kind of nice. But you're always going to have something you're working towards.
Very similar to podcast structure I've had. Like I try to have like some sort of direction and like we can deviate and talk about other things, but then I always know like we're coming back to the topic.
Do the detour, come back to the highway, keep on moving forward.
Exactly. Yeah. And there's nothing wrong with that.
Nothing wrong with it. I mean, if anything...
Sometimes that's where the good bits are.
It makes a more interesting journey. Absolutely.
Yeah. So there was one I missed.
Okay.
It was more, it was depending on platform. Like, does storytelling change depending on what platform you're on? And I guess it would also be like short form and long form. Like, does it change a lot?
It can change how it's presented.
Yeah.
I think, and structures can slightly change as well.
Yeah.
Because what you're able to do, so long form, we're considering anything in that kind of minute to a minute and a half area and beyond. Whereas like short form, I mean, we can go under a minute to like 5-7 seconds.
Yeah, very, very short.
Thanks, algorithm. TikTok's killing our attention spans.
Yeah, man.
I mean, that's a whole other topic we can go into. But it does change a little bit because what you're able to do, I mean, we talked about depth, right? And so you want to take people on some sort of journey. And so in short form, if we're thinking of story and leaning in on story, then you've got less time to do that and you've got less time to build depth.
Yeah.
But you are keeping a change at the forefront. You're keeping something of, you're trying to either answer a question and get to an answer, or you're trying to show a little bit of context, something happens and you got some sort of resolution in the end, and you're trying to find a way that all those things are connected.
Yes.
When it comes to long form, you've got more time to set the context. You've got more time to really heighten the change or the transformation that occurs. And you've got a little bit more breathing room to also go, well, here's what it means. Here's the answer to that question. Here's what I want you to walk away with. And so, yeah, I think the structure change and the presentation can change.
Yep.
You know, the idea that you can post one video on one platform and then cross-pollinate and just post it exactly the same on other platforms, it doesn't necessarily work.
Yeah.
Because people generally prefer a particular platform, like for example TikTok, because there's a style or a type of content that does really well.
True.
And whether that's less polished, it's a bit kind of raw, it's maybe shot on a phone more.
Yep.
I mean, the comments on TikTok are just so unhinged. Like, it just goes, it's just off. There's like,
yeah, the comments are completely different,
it's
dude.
so different. Whereas, you know, Instagram, we kind of think of Instagram as a little bit more polished. Sure, there's, you know, a push to try and bring a little bit of, you know, unpolished to the arena, but it's going to be a style that people kind of go there because there's a lot of, you know, creative professionals on Instagram that tend to like a bit more of a crafted, you know, piece. And then, you know, places like YouTube, you've got real long form storytellers and creatives and people who are thinking about series and deeper connection with audiences. You know, they're going to try and do that in a longer piece that builds more depth.
Yes.
You know, it's like going into, you know, you've probably seen like the memes of like, you know, LinkedIn, everyone's in a suit and tie.
Yeah,
you've got like
so
TikTok, they're in their trackies, and it's like Instagram, they're kind of like looking cool on a yacht with their buddies.
That's so true.
So,
man.
I mean, you've got these different platforms. Everyone's showing up a little bit differently.
That's so true.
But I think the thing that's really coming through lately is that people, their bullshit radars are just becoming heightened. People kind of see through the facade of where something's not really as authentic as it looks. Like we know that, you know, we start to question things and we start to think of people where like, who is this person I'm actually following? People are starting to kind of see a little bit more of that. And sure, you know, the conversation around AI shaping that world and, you know, we're starting to question what's real, what's not. I think authenticity and being human is what is allowing deeper connection. And when one thing comes into a market of, you know, for example, like AI, and we're seeing a lot of that being, you know, kind of pushed onto us, we find there's always a counter movement that happens, and people are looking for who's real, what's real, and who's just showing up as themselves. And that's what people are kind of looking for and finding connection in. And sure, AI stuff can work fantastic, and it probably will. But I think people will still connect with people, and there'll be always a counter movement, and people just want to, you know, connect in person. They'll want to know that who they've been following still shows up authentically, or at least is fighting for what they believe and communicates that effectively. And that is shown in different ways on all the different platforms.
It's already showing up. I feel like there is a big rise in just in-person events, workshops, events in particular. Like you see these guys doing the cafe thing. That's blowing up, the run clubs, like people just wanting to be more in person.
I mean, girlfriend has a run club in Canada. I think one run club, and they just, you know, they've been booming for the last like year or two. And it's getting hundreds of people coming in. You know, we go over every summer, and it's just like people they love the community and the connection, because even if you've got, you know, maybe a job that you don't love, or maybe you're in a city that feels new, you go to one of these places and you find some like-minded people because they're interested in something that maybe you're interested in. Conversations spark, ideas spark. You feel included, and maybe there's a time that you know, you feel understood because people are listening, they're communicating. But there's also that time, I think now too, that people are a little bit awkward. You know, it's post-COVID, and so people are feeling a little bit awkward in social events. And so I think it's our job as communicators and facilitators is to kind of help people go, this is actually okay to connect in a space or feel safe doing so. You empower them to then go out and do more of it.
Do you think there's a bit of a rebellious effect, as in like towards AI, as in like you can replicate my videos and you can replicate my photos, but you can't replicate this in-person experience? Well,
you can look at it like that as well. I think, I mean, in-person events are hard to do.
Yeah.
Like, and to get people to show up is actually
Yeah.
quite challenging.
True.
And so you'll find that it's so much easier to put something out online. It's kind of like you're removed, let the judgment happen elsewhere. You know, it's the whole idea of like, it's way more awkward to ask someone out on a date than to, you know, just send someone like, hey, you up? Or like, you know,
true.
or hey, do you want to go out with me? It's like, oh no, cool, block, swipe, you know.
Of course, exactly.
No
Gone.
feelings.
Erased from my life.
Exactly right. Whereas, you know, you're on a cold approach.
Yeah.
Maybe in like, you know, maybe you're at a run club. Maybe you're
So
at a local cafe. Maybe you're just somewhere in the environment that, you know, that's kind of not creepy or weird. And you're doing that, but you're being vulnerable.
Yeah.
And you know, you feel vulnerable because there's always a chance that someone's going to say no and you feel a bit shit about it.
Yeah, totally.
You can't just like run away. And I think in-person events, you know, a lot of people won't do them because they're not used to that feedback. Maybe it's like, oh, I'm actually not that funny in person.
True.
Maybe I'm more awkward than I think I am. But you don't know unless you show up and you build some evidence.
Yep.
And I think people they will respect anyone who is trying. Like,
correct.
If you try, you're giving it a go. And I think there's nothing more admirable than just someone going out and just trying a thing. Even if they suck, you're like, well, mate, at least you had a go.
Yep. And we feel better about ourselves for doing so as well.
Yeah, or worse for a little period of time. You might be like, oh, that absolutely sucks. But you'll be like, I'm glad I did it.
Yeah, and a lot of the times the fears that we have never come to reality anyway.
No, we all project our, you know, our worst case scenario.
Yeah.
And a lot of the time that
never
doesn't come
happens.
true.
Not even close.
No.
This has been amazing, dude. Like, so good, so that, like, I feel like what I love about these pods is I selfishly learn so much.
Yeah.
And I take away so much from these. And you're literally, everything you show yourself to be online. You know, you know your craft, you know your stuff, and it's not a secret, you know, why you are where you are right now. Do you have any workshops? You've got the cohort coming up.
Yeah, firstly, really appreciate that. Thank you.
No problem, man.
This has been a pleasure as well. I mean, I don't do a lot of podcasts.
Yeah.
And
I know, man. I was looking. You made me work.
Bit of a mystery in the background.
Yeah, dude.
But this one worked, and I was keen to kind of come in and have a conversation.
Yeah. I know how busy you are too, man. Like, you're not from around here. You had 2 workshops like back to back over the weekend. So I feel grateful when someone just rocks up. But for someone as busy as you, who's just like in town for the weekend, makes time, I really, really do appreciate that, man.
I mean, I've been talking the whole weekend, so I might as well just keep the conversation going, right?
Yeah.
And I think what was the question you just...
What you've got coming up? You just had the workshops, and you've got a cohort.
I think launching an online cohort,
Awesome.
that's going to start, I think, next month. So we'll launch that next month. And
Fantastic.
that's, I think, over 4 weeks.
Cool.
Trying to decide whether I go to 5 weeks.
This is online, right?
This is online, but it's live. So
cool.
people are showing up all over the world. We'll have like a lesson. There'll be Q&As, a community. People can get feedback from me. I love creating stuff in a live environment. It's challenging for me, but it's also really rewarding for anyone watching.
Yep.
So I incorporate aspects of the live workshop that I do in person to the online experience.
Fantastic.
And so that's happening and launching next month. And then
and what's the topic? Is that like filming yourself? Is it storytelling? A bit of everything?
Bit of storytelling. I mean, my specialty is really leaning in on visual storytelling and creating sequences, which can be utilised across any niche. And so that's where I really lean on trying to solve that problem for people, rather than trying to just do everything all at once. They get a better experience that way. And I think upcoming workshops, I mean, I'm looking at locations over in the US, looking at Europe around mid-year. The hardest thing is locking in venues, but we'll see how we go.
You did one in Vancouver recently.
Yeah, I've done about 7 in Vancouver.
That's amazing.
We've been over in London, we've been over in Switzerland, New York, all over Australia. So I think
that's so cool.
People are signing up to the newsletter or jumping on the website, bryanhynes.live. They can find some free guides and resources, or just sign up for the waitlist on the cohort, or workshops, and just keep updated that way.
Man, that sounds like a lot of work.
But all the workshops are super rewarding.
Yeah.
I only work with about 3 or 4, brands over the year on a campaign, or if something aligns, and that allows me, to say no to a lot of things, which allows me to say yes to the things that, that I want to move forward in.
Yep.
And helping the next kind of generation of creatives or business owners come up.
Yep.
If I can provide value and help those people along the way, then that fills my cup, and then it also helps other people.
Very good. Well, I feel like you've helped me, and you've helped a lot of people with this conversation here, man. So appreciate your time.
Thanks for having me on.
No problem. Thank you.
Cool.